Okay, guys, we're back, and now it takes turn to reading comprehension and listening. We're going to have a review of the case of the gasping garbage. I know you love this story. It is very interesting. It is fun. You have to check the correct intonation and pronunciation. I'm going to read the story for you, and then I'm going to answer the questionnaire together with you within the answers. Then after that, I'm going to give you some instructions for you to know how I'm going to grade reading comprehension and also the listening exercise. The one you did was for practice. Another one I'm going to be sending in is going to be for grade. It's going to be taken as a grade. So let's get started. I'm going to read the story. Remember, when we have our stories in class, we try to make them as fun as we have to make them fun. We have to make them interesting. So I'm going to read it as it is because this is a very, very interesting story. So remember, when we start a story, we always have to know the plot, the setting, the characters, and the gender of the story. What is the gender of the story? That's what I wrote in the questionnaires. That's why you have to know, first of all, the title, the plot, the setting, the characters, and the gender. Always. It's very important for you to know that. So, the title of the story is The Case of the Gasping Garbage. The gender of the story is realistic fiction. You should know how to use and how to know what is it about. What is realistic fiction? Here in this story, you saw a lot of characters that were very funny. There's a lot of characters. You count them up. The setting and the place of the story, where is it? Is it in the park? Is it in a laboratory? Is it in at school? Is it in the airport? Where is it? We're gonna find out when we answer the questionnaire together. Let's get started with the story. Guys, it's very important for you to know the correct pronunciation and intonation. It begins Monster Mission. Introducing Doyle and Fossey Science Detectives, known throughout the 5th grade for their relentless pursuit of answers. And not just any answers, the right answers. On a damn drizzly day, in an attic not too far away, Drake Doyle worked alone in his homemade laboratory. The laboratory was filled with the latest scientific equipment: a chalkboard, racks of test tubs, flasks, and beakers, dozens of sharpened pencils, and a lab coat with his name on it. Let me just find out how is this work all about. I will let you know, okay? So, Drake's hair was quite wild. Some would say it stuck straight up. And the color of toast. Cinnamon toast, that is. And perched on the end of his nose was a pair of brown glasses, making him look very scientific indeed. Which, of course, he has. On this damn drizzly day, an experiment was underway, a very important experiment. The solution in the test tube fizzed and popped. Drake Doyle glanced at his watch, then scribbled the results in his lab notebook. Okay. I'm talking about pronunciation. Okay, so here. Fizzed and popped right at time, not a second late, experiment a success. It's just a very short note at the end of the page, okay? So remember the word beakers. It is beakers, okay? It's a word that you use in laboratories, okay? You take them as tools for experiments and all of that, okay? It's a large container. Okay, so let's continue with the story. Drake slapped his notebook shut. Serious scientists always slap their notebook shut. He shoved his pencil round his ear just as the phone rang. Doyle and Fossey, he answered, speaking in his best scientific voice. Neil Fossey was Drake's lab partner. They were business together. They were having business together, serious business. Their business was to read. Doyle and Fossey science detectives call us anytime. There is a chart over there that says the instruction. Hurry, hurry! It's a major emergency. Someone screamed on the other end of the phone. There's a monster in my garbage can. Drake pushed up his glasses with his finger. Obviously, this was an important phone call. Very, very important phone calls were more important than important experiments. He set his test tubes aside. Who is this? He asked. Let's go on with the story. Gabby Talberg, she shrieked, hurry, hurry. Oh, hi, Gabby. Gabby Talberg was in Drake's 5th grade class at school. She was a nice girl, even if she talked too much. Now calm down and speak slowly. What seems to be the problem? Speak slowly. Are you nuts? I said there's a huge, giant, blood-sucking monster in my garbage can, and it's growing bigger and bigger every second, and I'm alone in the house, and it's going to gobble me up, and I don't want to be someone's dinner. Gabby gasped for breath. Drake was excited. This could prove to be a great Doyle and Fossey science detectives. They'd never had a monster assignment before. And of course, it would be a great day for the small town of Mossy Lake. They'd publish their findings in the local newspaper. Garbage-eating monster discovered. Mossy Lake's garbage problem solved. Maybe they'd even lecture at Mossy Lake University. But Drake couldn't allow his excitement to overwhelm his good scientific sense. That was the first rule of science. And Drake was a stickler about rules of science. The images are great, guys. The images are great. He cleared his throat and forced himself to speak. Calmly, what makes you think there's a monster? He said. All kinds of weird gasping noises are coming from garbage can. Something's inside. Hurry, Drake. Let's have to come over immediately and get rid of it. Because if you don't, I'll just have to call James Frisco. Great Scott! Thought Drake, horrified. Not James. Frisco was in their 5th grade class at school. Frisco was a competitor. Frisco was a scientist, but he was a bad scientist. A very bad scientist. A mad scientist, he might say. Frisco's business card read, Frisco, mad scientist, better than Doyle, Fossey, call me day and night. So, do you think they were supposed to be detectives, right? Okay, why was Frisco such a bad or mad scientist? Because if Frisco didn't like a number, he erased it. because if an experiment asked for pink, Frisco used blue. Because the experiment called for 2, Frisco used 1 or 3. But most especially because if an experiment said adult, supervision required, or else Frisco did it anyway, alone. What is next? Drake knew that if Gabby hired Frisco, there was no telling that could happen. Knowing Frisco's sloppy scientific techniques, Frisco might let the monster out the can and he and Gabby would never be seen again. Gobbled in the blink of an eye. Blink of an eye. Drake, and said Gabby, Drake, are you there? I said, you have to come over immediately and get rid of it or else I'll call Frisco. Check, I'll be right there. Click. They were talking on the phone. Drake phoned Nell. She was the most fabulous partner, an amateur scientist and detective genius could have whenever they had a serious case. Nell dropped everything and reported for duty. Doyle and Fossey, she answered, picking up the phone of its first ring. Ring. Drake here. Meet me at Gabby's house right away. Gabby's garbage is gasping. So what happened then? Who answered the phone, guys? Right. Click. Nell was already waiting on Gabby's porch by the Drake. He arrived. He wasn't surprised as she was the best runner in the 5th grade class. With her coffee-colored hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. This is a ponytail. Her scientist cap shoved atop her head, and her mouth set in a fur. She looked ready to take on this most difficult case. Afternoon scientist Nell. Afternoon detective Doyle. And so saying, Nell stopped sharply on the door. Inside Gabby's house, Gabby pointed to a dark corner of the garbage. There, she whispered. There's blood-sucking monster inside the garbage can. Hurry! Get rid of it before it eats us all! Suddenly, the garbage can gasped. Oh my God, it trembled. It burped and jerked and it blanched and yelled. It means like blub, 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 blub. That's what it means. So what is next? What happened, guys? And it was very scary indeed. It's because if you imagine, if you were there, if you see something that is gasping, what do you imagine is inside? Drake and Nell immediately went to work. They pulled on surgical gloves. Snap! Gabby edged toward the door. You're not going to take off the lid, are you? If there's a monster inside, Drake replied, removing the lid would be most foolish. Now stand back. We'll take it from here. They tapped the sides of the can. Sounds hollow. Whispered Nell. She scribbled in her lab notebook and tapped again. Drake sniffed the air. Smells like fresh baked bread. He observed. that reminds me, Mrs. Stolberg, isn't your dad a baker? The best baker there is, answered Gabby. He won the blue ribbon last year at the county fair. Why? Just wondering. Drake muttered as he recorded his findings in his lab notebook. Meanwhile, Nell peered at the garbage can with her magnifying glass. She checked its temperature. She drew diagrams and charts. She was most efficient scientist. Finally, Drake and Nell stood back and removed their surgical gloves. Snap! What happened here, guys? Well, asked Gabby. Puzzling, said Drake. Fascinating, said Nell. Drake pushed up his glasses. Tell me, Mrs. Stolberg, does your garbage can always sit here next to the furnace? Gabby shook her head. My dad moved it a few days ago. Why? It is very warm next to the furnace, that's all, said Drake. 87 degrees to be precise, added Nell. Curious, very curious. Very curious, mumbled Drake. He jotted a note to himself in his notebook. Remember, he was acting very smart. What are you going to do now? Asked Gabby. Nell and I will take the garbage. Come back to the lab for further analysis. Expect our report within 24 hours. Wow, 24 hours. Guys, this is a very, very fun story. Let's see what happens, guys. It's almost ending, okay? We're going to be ending the story. It is a long story. Really, I know it is a long story, but why am I reading all of this? Because it is very important for you to know the correct intonation and pronunciation, okay? So let's go on. Great gasping garbage. Drake and Nell slogged through mud puddles. Lugging the garbage can be between them. For a monster, it wasn't very heavy. Even so, Drake slipped and almost fell because his glasses had fogged. Nell helped him up and brushed him off. She was a great partner, and besides, she was his best friend. Finally, they pushed the garbage can through Drake's back door, dragged it up 2 flights of stairs and into the attic lab. They set the garbage can in a corner next to a heater. We must simulate the same environment, said Drake. 87 degrees to be precise, said Nell. Drake cleaned his glasses and put on his white lab coat. Nell did too, except she didn't have any glasses clean. They stuck sharpened pencils behind their ears and sat on tools and opened their lab notebooks. Drake pulled a book off the shelf and shuffled through it until he found the right page. It read, Monster Analysis. What to do when your garbage is gasping? Just then, Drake's mom poured her head in the lab. Kate Doyle was a fine cook and ran her own catering company from home. Blueberry muffins were her specialty. Now, Mrs. Doyle asked if they wanted any hot chocolate with their muffins, seeing what it was such a damn dizzy day. No thanks, Drake said politely, just muffins. Real scientists don't drink hot chocolate. Ditto for real detectives, and they were both. Let's go over the facts again. said Nell. Drake nodded. Just the facts, ma'am. Together they pored over their observations. After a while, Drake's dad stuck his head in the lab. Sam Doyle owned a science equipment and supply company. He regularly brought home used equipment for the lab: computers, telescopes, horoscopes. No, what does it say here? Yes, telescopes, glassware, Bunsen hers, even an old sink that plumbed with hot and cold water. If their Drake or Nell needed equipment, Mr. Doyle was... Oh my God, I don't understand this word. Okay, sorry guys. Mr. Doyle was the correct man, I think it says here. Now, Okay guys, let's go on. Now Mr. Doyle glanced at the rumbling garbage can and told them to be careful. "We will," said Drake and Nell. Mr. Doyle rolled his eyes and closed the door. "What's he think we're going to do?" asked Drake. "Throw up the lab. You did last time," reminded Nell. "That's beside the point. Now where were we? Based on our observations, Scientist Nell, I have formulated a hypothesis. Hypothesis? Hypothesis. It's the correct way to say it. Hypothesis. Although the evening they worked, later he brought them tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches with a pickle on the side. Mrs. Doyle, that's what she did. Mrs. Doyle always cooked from her vegetarian menu whenever Nell was found, because Nell was a vegetarian. Drake and Nell washed their hands and sat at Drake's desk knowing they should never eat or drink while conducting experiments. They were two-notch scientists. After supper, Nell called her mother and asked if she could stay extra late, given that there was no school tomorrow and that they were swamped with experiments and under a deadline. Ann Fossey was a biology professor at Mossy Lake University. Her specialty was wildlife biology. "Goodness gracious sakes alive," exclaimed Professor Fossey. "Sounds like you are a busy scientist. Now, don't you worry about a thing, my dear. I'll be sure to feed your rats and lizards. And don't forget my snakes and bugs." "Of course, dear," said Professor Fossey. "I'll leave the light on for you." Finally, after midnight, they had their answer. In the morning, Nell hurried back to Drake's house. They called Gabby first thing. "Meet us in the lab," said Nell. "We've discovered the identity of the monster." After Gabby arrived, Drake paced the floor while Nell sat at a stool. "You see, Mrs. Thalberg, Drake was saying it's really quite simple, Nell." "Thank you, Detective Doyle. First of all," said Nell, "the garbage can sounded hollow when we tapped on it. Second, the garbage can wasn't too heavy." "You see, Mrs. Thalberg," said Drake, "most monsters are quite heavy." "In addition," added Nell, "the garbage can was stored in a very warm environment. We copied that environment in our lab by setting the can next to the heater and checking its temperature. But most important, the garbage can smell like bread." "Remember, your dad is a baker," said Drake. "The best baker around." To be exact, therefore, based on facts and our observations, I developed an educated guess that we scientists call a hypothesis. Hypothesis. It is hypothesis. I believed that the monster lurking inside your garbage can was not fully a monster at all. But that's what they thought, guys. This is the end of the story. I know it's quite long. It took a long time. And I'm going to answer the questionnaire very fast for you guys. The answer of question number 1, the title of the story is The Case of the Gasping Garbage. What is the genre of the story? Realistic fiction, guys. Realistic fiction. What is realistic fiction? It's about people and events that are imaginary, okay? Question number 3. How many characters are there in the story? 4 characters. It doesn't matter that you don't mention the names. They are 4 characters. What can you find in Drake Doyle's laboratory? It was on page 16. A chalkboard racks of tubes, flasks, beakers, dozens of sharpened pencils, and a lab coat with his name on it. That's what you could find, guys. Next answer. What was Drake's hair look like? It was quite what? Was it fluffy? What was it? Question number 6. What is Gabby's problem in the story? It was that a huge, giant, blood-sucking monster had to be there. Yes or no? That's what they thought it was. What was discovered in the garbage? Did they discover what was it? What was the answer, guys? The answer was a garbage-eating monster. That's what they thought it was. Next one. Are there detectives in the story? Yes or no? Yes, because the story is about mystery. That's why there were detectives. Question number 9. How does Drake call himself? How does he call himself? Was he a detective? Was he a scientist? How was he called himself, guys? Page 23, sorry. What are Nell and Drake going to do for further analysis? They are going to take the garbage to the laboratory to make an analysis. What is Gabby expecting for to be given from Drake? The report. It was Nell's report. Remember, Nell and Drake made a report. What is the garbage can that is so important? What is it in there? A monster. What is the garbage can? A monster. What did Drake Mons bring to the laboratory? She brought what? It was food. What was it? Tomato soup. She brought tomato soup and grilled. It was something like a stew or something like that. Did she bring muffins? I want you to answer me that. Did she bring muffins? Because I saw a picture there that she had muffins in her hand. What did Drake's mom bring to the laboratory? That's what I'm talking about. Tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches with the pickle inside. Yummy, yummy. Who said they discovered the identity of the monster? Who said that? Nell. Okay, here in number 15, you had to write the list of the garbage can clues. A garbage can clue sounded hollow, wasn't heavy, warm environment, smelled like bread, Gabby's dead baker. Okay, question 16. What are the result of carbon dioxide? What is the result, guys? It was tiny bubbles in bread. Question 17. What did the yeast produce? The yeast, that's what you use in the kitchen to cook, to make cakes. That's yeast. What else can be combined with this? Well, for the experiment. Yeast produced so much carbon dioxide flour. That's why it became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay? so it produced a lot of carbon dioxide. Was there finally a ghost, a monster, or a monster in the garbage? Yes, it was yeast. They thought it was a monster, but it was yeast. Okay, 19. What happened to the detectives? What happened to the detectives, guys? Did they go? Did they run away? Did they pay them? What happened to them? Because finally, who found out it was yeast in the garbage can? It was Floor. It wasn't a monster, okay? Okay, write down the list of the monster analysis. Hypothesis, correct, received 2 price loaves of bread. That's what they received. Extra raisins, extra nuts as payment. That's what I'm talking about the muffins, okay? And guys, well, I think that's it. It was question number 20, okay? And we have ended reading comprehension. I think that the video is going to be too long to make listening again. So I'm going to take the listening exercise that you have there also as a grade. So that's all for now. And if you have doubts or you want to know something about it, let me know. Thank you. Please stay blessed always. I love you.